Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some awesome beers from these guys over the years and they're probably one of the most featured breweries here on the channel these days actually. I've probably reviewed about 60 or so different beers from these guys and it's another example of one of their signature styles that we're going to have a look at today. So quite curious to see how it turns out. For this review then we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just a bit of a channel tradition. And for this review, we are going to return to the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Tropikos. It comes in at 6.2% ABV, and this one is another New England hazy IPA. So this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021. The other two beers that they released this month were the Ringubrau Rauchbier, and they also released the Existence Essence Transcendence, if I've remembered the order of the name correctly. But both of those reviews have published on the channel already. But yeah, 6.2% New England IPA, this one. Curious to see how it turns out. I've been enjoying the IPAs from these guys recently. They've been doing some really good stuff, and so I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've told you before, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So these two guys own two bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and the Hagabions Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and they opened up back in 2007. The building in which these are located is actually an independent cinema, and if you want to have a little look at that, you can check out my out and about video that I did there, which was filmed back in September or October of 2019, if memory serves me correctly. But originally the idea that they had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, but this led to them kegging the beer and selling it to other pubs, and then eventually to bottling the beers, which began in November of 2014. The original beers that they were doing were mainly English and German styles, but more recently they've been expanding into the more kind of hoppy American beer styles, and this is where they really made their name. The original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is also the co-owner of OO Brewing, and he stayed with the company until about April of 2017. He's one of the really highly regarded brewers here in Sweden, the creator of the famous GBG Beer Week Beer 2016, which can now be found under the name New and Improved GBG Beer Week. He created the Amazing Haze, and then under the OO Brewing brand he also created the Narangi as well. So those three are kind of three of the cult classic Swedish New England IPAs, along with the Opigård's New Sweden IPA. That's a lovely beer as well. Brewski, of course, here in Skåne, I would count them within, if they had done a regular beer, they would also kind of be one of the legendary hazy producers here in Sweden, I would say. But for a period of time, he was replaced by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents over at Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana in the States, close to Chicago, and but he was only with them for a couple of months actually before they replaced their brewing team. But they moved to a new brewery at Partihalarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they'd started working on some sour beers there as well. But they started selling their beers in these 440ml cans as opposed to the 330ml bottles. If you want to see the bottled Stigbergets stuff, go and check out some of my very early Stigbergets reviews from about 2015 or 2016. But this has allowed them to export a lot more as well. But they've now got a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Munraid, who used to work for All In Brewing. one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating around Gothenburg. But as of summer 2020, they've moved into a new brewery in Ringen in the city, and they're considering brewing some lambic beer there apparently as well, which I think should be quite interesting. They say that this new brewery has the possibility for swimming facilities and a bar. The article that I read on this was talking about like an experience brewery, so it'll be interesting to go and check that out once they've got it up and running. We just need to wait for this whole COVID-19 thing to bugger off basically. But they also opened up a bar in Stockholm in 2020, and they also opened up a folköl shop in Gothenburg as well. For those of you who don't know, in Sweden, anything that is above 3.5% in alcohol has to be sold in the nationally owned Stigbergets stores. Anything that's 3.5 and below can be sold in the supermarket normally. So in anything that is under 3.5% or any beer, you call it a folköl, a people's beer, if you like. But yeah, as of February 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 100 different kinds of beer. And of course, over the year, that will increase. They always release 2 or 3 different beers through the Lokalis Moskaligt every month, as well as a few in the different Tillfälliga releases as well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Stigbergets Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've released. But yeah, that's all I have for you at the moment on Stigbergets Bryggeri, and as I say, we've done about 60 reviews or something from these guys now, so I should know that. I should know my brewery notes off by heart with these guys. I probably could actually do that if I tried. Maybe I'll try that in the next video. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as I told you at the start of the video, this one is a 6.2% New England IPA, released in February of 2021 through Systembolaget here in Sweden, Tropikos. And yeah, 440ml can. This one contains just oats actually. It doesn't have wheat in it, this, which is quite interesting. So I'm curious to see how that reflects. But this one was released along with Existence, Essence, Transcendence, if I'm remembering the name rightly. I've probably got the words the wrong way around or something. But yeah, 440ml can. I think I paid about 45 Swedish kronas for this. So roughly about £4 sterling, €4.50, somewhere in the region of $5 American. But yeah, look at the that's... trying to figure out, that's a leopard. Yeah, it's a leopard because it's got the brown parts in its spots, but look at that. The big cats are amazing animals, amazing animals actually. Yeah, more of a dog man, but I can appreciate the big cats. The great apes have always fascinated me as well, and you know, elephants, they're things with genetic memory and stuff like that. Is just crazy. But yeah, 440ml can, this one, gold top. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I do wonder how Stigbergets decide which beers are going to have the gold tops on them and which ones are going to have just, you know, the regulars. So yeah, I'd be curious to see to know how they decide that. But anyway, yeah, fingers crossed this is another good Stigbergets one. I actually don't know if I'm getting an IPA from Stigbergets in May. I know I'm getting the Ringu Broy Hellas, and I think there might be one IPA from them, come to think of it. But yeah, this should be pretty cool. I've only got a wee bit left. Let's just put it in. Why not? There we go. Ugh. I'm always torn whether to leave a little bit in the can and pour it in later. But there you can see. There we go. That should hopefully be nicely lined up. My OCD getting the can lined up with the camera again, as always, kicking in. But yeah, as you can see with this one, this has poured a nice, this has poured a lovely looking beer actually. I have to say the level of haze on this, if we shine the light through this, the level of haze on this for a 6.2%er is pretty damn impressive. But as you can see, it poured with just about a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. That's a slightly off-white head, not you know, not perfect white as they say, but yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, not too much visible carbonation. But in terms of the colour, I would describe this one as looking a bit like a kind of mixed tropical fruit juice, if you like. I always like comparing these New England IPAs to the different tropical fruit juices, because that's just, you know, what they remind me of. So this one looks as if it might be, you know, like mango and pineapple or something like that. But it looks very, very nice, I have to say, in terms of its appearance. So the colour of these beers, of course, as I've told you many a times, is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and then 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour out of the beer. But then, yeah, the malt types actually really decide that. But yeah, on the hazy side of things, I have to say the level of haze in this for a 6.2% is very, very impressive. I've seen, when you put the light through it at the top, you can see there is a little bit of light coming through it, but the level of haze on this for a 6.2% is pretty impressive. The level of haze you have in these beers is dependent on the oat and wheat content. Like I said, this beer only has oats in it, so it kind of shows you how much the oats can influence the haziness of the beer. So yeah, it just varies from brewery to brewery, though they always alter their wheat and oaty content, if you like. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then, and just and see how we go. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. It certainly looks the part for a New England IPA, so let's check out the aroma. That does smell pretty damn nice, I have to say. First impression of it is that it's a very, very soft, but just juicy and fruity New England IPA. So yeah, I really like how all of that goes together. Yeah, this one, it's kind of just signature Stigbergets, to be honest with you. Had so many IPAs from these guys, you kind of know what to expect, but they keep putting solid stuff out there, so it keeps you going back for more and more. But yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, so on the what's that, man? Thinking it's Swedish there as well. Brain really is getting fried these days, honestly, with all these Swedish classes. But yeah, the thing with this beer as well, when you go into the aroma, then straight away with this malt base, you can smell a lovely soft kind of white bready note there, but you get a lot of that big oaty kind of note out of the beer. The oats don't come across as overly creamy in this beer, in fairness. I think they've got a really nice, they have got a little bit of a kind of almost like powdery dryness to them. I do get a little bit of that out of this beer, but they also add an element of sweetness to the overall beer. So I really like how that goes together in this one for sure. The malty side of this beer, I think, is really, really interesting. So thumbs up to Stigbergets for doing something quite interesting with this beer. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's the more that you smell this beer, it actually does almost give you a little bit of a slightly wheaty pungency out of it. It doesn't have wheat in it, like I said, but you almost, when you sugar the beer up a little bit, you get a wee bit of that kind of bitiness that you would normally associate with the wheat in the beer. But yeah, really soft, white bready base to this one. Nice, you can smell a bit of the oaty smoothness in there, but it also gives you that impression of being a little bit kind of, powdery and dry in a sense, which is quite interesting. There is a wee element of brown sugar in this one too. So for me, spilled a little bit there. But for me, yeah, you do get a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Original kind of brown sugary note out of this beer, but not overly much, I have to say. Yeah, there's just a little bit of a kind of you do get just a nice little bit of just that Werther's Original brown sugary sweetness in this beer, but to me the malt base in this one comes across as remarkably straight shooting. It's again just soft white, a bit of a soft, slightly crisper white bread, some nice kind of big oaty smoothness in there, a little bit of a kind of a little bit of a oaty, a little bit of a sort of oaty creaminess to it, and then you've also just got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original brown sugary note kind of sitting on top of that. So yeah, it's really nice how all of that kind of fits together, if you like. So interesting stuff, I have to say. The malty side of this is pretty interesting. So I'm curious to see how that's going to translate into the flavour. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, again, this beer actually comes across as really just, it comes across as a little bit reserved in its aroma almost compared to some of the other Stigbergets ones. But yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness there, but not a lot. But then very quickly it becomes big and sort of floral and aromatic in a sense. So I really like how, I really do like how that side of the beer kind of goes together. So yeah, just bear that in mind with this one. This one has a really nice kind of, it has a really nice sort of green component to it actually. I like that about this beer. There's a nice kind of lighter sort of grassy, slightly zesty kind of thing going on with this beer, and then you've also You get a wee bit of kind of a fruity note kind of mixed in with the grassiness as well. So yeah, good little bit of zestiness there. The green component for me, though, kind of leans more towards that big floral aromatic part of the spectrum, definitely. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of things then. So, fruity side of the beer for me, it really leans towards that kind of soft tropical note. Actually, you do get a wee bit of a pungent passion fruity note out of this one, but yeah, quite a bit of a soft. Quite a bit of a softer tropical note really dominates it here. So there's mangoes in there, there's a little bit of an apricot-y quality, like I said, and there's a few other things going on in here too. You know, yeah, I would say apricot, mango, they kind of dominate the note, but then the more you smell of it, I think there's a wee touch of an orangey quality comes out. I do get a wee bit of, you know, a sort of tangerine orangey note coming out of this one. I do wonder if that's, you know, if that's mosaic in this one. I do wonder if there's a wee bit of mosaic in here. Yeah, I do get more and more orange out of this beer the more that I smell of it, but it works really nicely. There's a wee bit of a lemony zesty character on the very kind of front edge of the nose there, but yeah, a little bit of darker passion fruit, soft mango, kind of apricots, bit of a brighter, more oily tangerine orange in there, then just a little touch of a grassy kind of zesty thing. Nothing surprising about the aroma, to be quite honest with you, but I think the malt base is going to be quite interesting to examine in this one. So yeah, take a little bit of time to have a look at the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, but we're going to taste this one now and just see how we get on. I'm really curious about this. So yeah, this one is the Tropikos 6.2% New England IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Ringen up in Gothenburg. Curious about this beer because of the lack of wheat. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's interesting for sure. When you take it in, it does have a wee bit of bite to it, but normally, you know, the bite comes out at the front of the palate rather than the back where you would normally get the wheat. So yeah, that is an interesting point to make about this beer. It just goes to show you how different ingredients can really affect different parts of the palate and just make you perceive different flavours in different ways. So yeah, this one I think is quite an interesting beer just for the sort of novelty of it, if you like, the fact that it doesn't have the wheat in it, because that's not really that common these days, just to have a kind of oaty, you know, I think, you know, a sort of oaty IPA, if that makes sense. So yeah, interesting things to think about here. Yeah, and if you take a bigger gulp of this as well, you can really feel the smoothness of the oats in this. And the oats, it's just interesting to see that when there's no wheat in this beer, the oats actually spread all the way to the back of the palate as well. Yeah, this is definitely teaching me a little bit about what oats can actually do in the beer for sure. But I'm going to say thumbs up to Stigbergets for this. This is a nice beer. Is it the one that's going to kind of blow you away the most from these guys? Is it really going to, you know, give you a punch in the gut or whatever? No, this is just another kind of nice, solid, nice drinking one actually. It's not the most striking one I've had from Stigbergets, but is it up to their standards that they usually have? Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, I mean, we've had some, you know, probably the best beer I've had from Stigbergets in recent times, come to think of it, was the Chronic, that big triple IPA that they did, and then before that we had the King of Hops and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but I mean, there are just some beers from Stigbergets that you're just like, oof, geez. But this one is just, it's another nice, just kind of solid drinker, this one, but it's up to their usual high standards, if you like. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour profile of this one then and describe it a little bit more. So yeah, straight away in the middle of the palate with this beer then, you get a nice, soft and still quite crisp white bready quality. That just blankets the middle of your palate there. What you'll notice about this beer is that when you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel it really, you know, it really does just kind of smoothen out and just dry out a little bit. On the back of these New England IPAs, I've actually gotten into drinking a little bit of oat milk just to kind of fully, I like it, but it's in a way it's also to kind of fully train my palate as to look for oaty flavours and be fully aware of what's going on with them. But yeah, this beer, the malt base in this one is very, very straight shooting compared to some of the other Stigbergets ones. That little bit of brown sugary Werther's original note that I was picking up in this one, that doesn't come out in the flavour, I have to say. It doesn't really come out in the flavour at all. This malt base is very straight shooting pale malt. In the middle third of your palate, then the oats kind of sit on top of that, and as you progress further into the aftertaste with the beer, you can feel that sort of powdery suspension-y type thing from the oats. That just sits there in the middle of the palate, then dries out a wee bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, it's a lovely take on the beer, this one. I mean, it's a lovely, well, what am I trying to say? Brain's not working as always. I'm trying to say that it's like, you know, it's interesting just to see the influence that the oats have on the beer on its own. You can just feel that it gives you a smoothness, but it also just gives you a wee touch of a slightly kind of powdery, slightly dry quality, which I like, yeah. So yeah, this is a lovely beer though. I think it's definitely grows on me a bit more. It's got a nice, because of the kind of straight shooting nature of the malt base, it actually has a really nice just juiciness to it. So I think the name suits, you know, Tropikos. It's just a very easy drinking one, this actually. And the thing that's interesting is that this is actually higher in alcohol than the Existence Essence Transcendence was. I think that was 5.8 or 5.9 if I remember rightly. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. But yeah, on the I think if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty quality there. If you go onto the back third of the palate there, you do get a wee bit of bitiness out of the beer, and it's just quite interesting because, you know, normally it must be the yeast that's contributing to that, because normally that would be where the wheat kind of sits and gives you a really strong bitiness, but you can feel a little bit of the kind of sort of powdery sort of nature of the oats. Kind of just sitting on top of that there as well. I'm quite, you know, cautious about using that term powdery, because, you know, people always think if it's powder, like it's really dry. But, you know, I'm thinking of it in the way of, you know, a suspension. You know, milk, for example, is a suspension. It's not really a liquid. It's basically, you know, it's a liquid with lots of solid particles, you know, floating around inside it. That's what you get from the oats in this. It has that sort of powdery, suspension-y type vibe to it, and it just adds a lovely smoothness to the beer. And you can feel in the middle of your palate, it almost just gets a little bit sweeter the further you go into the aftertaste, particularly on the front half of that front third of your tongue. So yeah, this goes together very nicely, I have to say. Straight shooting malt base. This is a you know, a different angle, if you like, on the New England hazies from Stigbergets, and it just goes to show you can play around with. There's a lot of variables you can play with in beer, and, you know, Stigbergets are having a go at another one here. So thumbs up to them for that. I think that's cool to see them still experimenting a little bit, I guess. But to be honest, I don't think there's anything more that we can say about the malt base in this one. It's really smooth. It's got that oaty kind of creaminess to it. I think it works very well. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's definitely a wee touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward from that, it does get really nice. It does build a nice kind of big floral aromatic note quite quickly, and then the floral aromaticity just gets brighter as you move towards the kind of front corners of the palate, if you like. It goes together really nicely. So yeah, the floral notes out of this beer, I think, work very well. Yeah, it's the green component of this beer, I think, is really nice. It offers you a good bit of contrast, if you like, to the malty backbone of the beer, which is quite straight shooting. But yeah, the floral aromaticity of the beer just kind of builds up. It's not quite spicy, but it's really quite bright in a sense as well. But then yeah, round the front curve of the palate, the beer has a little bit of a lighter sort of grassy kind of thing going on as well. So yeah, again, that works out pretty well, I have to say. So yeah, I mean, the green component of this beer, I think it makes the beer quite refreshing. So yeah, big deep floral aromaticity to it. You can feel a little bit of the dry hopping in there. It's still got a bit of that kind of dusty dry hopping kind of vibe to it, bit of lighter grassy note. And yeah, it goes together very nicely. So yeah, let's focus on the fruity part of the beer then. So as I always say, on the front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. On that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you can feel a wee bit of a bread crusty note, and it's almost like the sort of oaty powdery notes just kind of compress a little bit and come out of the beer, but you can feel the oaty underlining of the fruits in this beer as well. You feel a little bit of that just kind of slightly powdery dryness that I was talking about earlier with this one. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this beer for sure. But yeah, on the fruity side of the beer, then let's focus on that. So yeah, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit more of a, there is a bit of a pungenty sort of passion fruity note coming out of the beer. So yeah, definitely a good little bit of a pungenty passion fruit kind of thing coming out of this beer for sure. But then as you move further forward from that, it softens out very, very quickly. You start to get mango, and then it leans towards, you know, these the apricot-y. Do we get a bit of papaya out of this? I think there is a wee bit of a lighter papaya in this one, in fairness. But then on the front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a really nice sort of orangey kind of tangerine quality coming out of this beer. So I really like how all of that kind of pieces together in this one. I think the fruity side of things in this beer works really, really well. Actually, it's straight shooting. Again, this is just a very, very straight shooting beer. It feels like it's one that's designed for drinkability, and I think yeah, if this is, they should maybe re-release this one in like June or something like that for the summer. I think people would really appreciate this beer for that, because it's just really solid, really nice, easy drinking, quite straight shooting. So absolutely, you know, thumbs up to Stigbergets Bryggeri once again for this beer. I think they've done a solid job with this one. So yeah, I think there's not much more to say about the flavour profile of this one, other than there's a little bit of a lemony, zesty, grassy sort of thing on the front kind of tip of the tongue there. But yeah, passion fruit, bit of mango, soft apricot-y kind of notes in there, and then a little bit of a kind of tangerine orangey quality to this beer too. So yeah, interesting things to say about this one, definitely. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, then I think it's just the fruities are, you know, kind of wet and kind of juicy, if you like, and that adds just a wee bit more kind of contrast into the whole vibe of this beer. So yeah, soft oats, you know, kind of soft powdery oats, good green component, and then a little bit of a kind of juicy fruity character to the beer overall. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, then I would describe this beer as being, you know, yeah, I would describe this beer in terms of the mouthfeel as being, you know, kind of, it's sort of it's leaning a little bit more towards the bottom end of mid-bodied, if you like. It's a very easy drinker, this one. Smooth carbonation. The mouthfeel overall I would describe as being quite wet, but at the same time quite smooth. In terms of IBUs, I think it's a fairly standard 25 or 30 IBU beer, this. Malt base, as I said, is quite smooth. There's not really a sweetness to it, although the oats do give you the impression of a bit of sweetness in this beer. Then you've got a lovely kind of just juicy fruitiness out of it. So yeah, it's a very, very sessionable, very easy to drink IPA, this one. As I say, not the most kind of striking beer you're going to find from Stigbergets, but again, just a very, very solid example of the New England IPA style from them. So yeah, not much more you can ask for there, in honesty. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. So this one has been the Tropikos, a kind of oat-centric, if you like, New England Hazy IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Ringön in Gothenburg. Really enjoyed reviewing this one for you. I always enjoy the Stigbergets beers, so I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one as well. So let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets Bryggeri, and we will return to these guys at some point fairly soon. I have no doubt about that. I've got 2 beers, I think, coming from these guys in March of this, you know, March next month. Brain again is not working, but yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer. Let me know your favourite beers from Stigbergets, and I will catch you guys in the next review. Slange, skål, cheers. This one was the Tropikos 6.2% New England IPA from Stigbergets in Gothenburg here in Sweden.